Okay, so interference. We talked about this last unit with waves. We talked about constructive interference and destructive interference. So constructive interference is when like waves add. So you get something like this wave plus this wave equals super wave. So that's constructive interference. We did that last chapter. Destructive interference is where opposite waves subtract. So a positive wave plus the opposite equals nothing, because they cancel each other out. Okay, so I'm going to explain beats to you. Okay, so it's a wavering sound caused by interference alternating constructive and destructive. Some of the time it's going to sound the same. Some of the time it's going to cancel. And so some of the time you're doing this. Some of the time you're doing this. When you switch between them, that's what makes that pulsing sound. So let me show you one that's a little bit easier to follow. This one you'll be able to hear the pattern and it's not as annoying as mine.
Then you get these things so they're a little bit different in frequency. We strike them both at the same time.
That pulsing is what beats are.
Can you hear the throbbing?
Okay. That throbbing, that pulsing, that's beats.
Interference. And the phenomenon is called beats.
There you go. So beats is what it's called, and it's the result of interference. The two waves are creating patterns that interfere with each other, and that causes that sound that you're hearing. So give an example of beats. A good example of beats that you would probably be familiar with is being out of tune. Yep. My brother and I play together. I play bass, he plays guitar, and so sometimes we play together and do things, do different gigs or whatever. And we had one where we were playing, and my ear's not great as far as like hearing if things sound right or not. They sound fine to me, but it's mostly based off of, am I playing what I know I should be playing? Because when I listen on my in-ear monitors, my in-ear monitors are basically just drums and bass. I don't hear very much of the other instruments. I don't hear vocals. So I'm playing, and everything sounds fine. My brother keeps giving me this look, like, what are you doing, you moron? And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with this kid. I don't know what he's thinking. So we got to like the end of like the first or second song, and he had someone else in the group tell a story, and he came running over to me. He's like, dude, you need to tune your bass. And I'm like, my bass is fine. He's like, you only hear the drums. Of course it's fine with drums. It turns out I was a quarter of a step off. So when I was playing E, it was actually playing not quite E flat, which if you've never heard two things that are almost the same but not the same, they sound terrible. They sound like those two things I did for you before. And it was making these beats in the audience that you could hear this pulsating noise from my bass and his guitar being out of tune with each other. So I told him afterwards, if he knew it was out of tune, he should have tuned his guitar out of tune to match mine. I don't know why I had to change just because it was supposed to be his. Then I don't know what the excuse is. Anyway, there you go. Long, not interesting story about beats. Questions about beats or resonance or anything else for that matter?